And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Steelshod. I need to do some more establishing shots here and introduce the newest recruits, so buckle up and get ready for a lot of lore and character building. Alexander and Yoren have returned to Arcadia. They are currently awaiting new orders from the Marshal, though they have extracted a promise of higher than normal pay. Every day, new news arrives about the Sfards. Fighting on the eastern and northern borders, naval reports say that there is a huge Svardic fleet massing to the far north, off the coast of Kriegani, and word has come of a large army of Svards that have invaded from the south. Some of their longships must have skirted the coast of Cadia to disembark along the southern borders. Several Cadian castles in the south have already fallen. Many of them have sent their men north to Marshal's army, leaving them underdefended. This is all very bad news. For one thing, the south is one of Cadia's main breadbaskets. Stories of Terbjornsson are spreading, too. He's been seen several places: south, east, west. Some say that during one siege in the south, Terbjornsson strode out in front of his armies and battered the gates of the castle down by himself. They say that Terbjornsson himself is larger even than other Berserks, and that the bearskin he wears is white as snow. Worst of all, however, are the stories of atrocities committed. Svards are savages, and always have been. Rape and pillage are the name of the game when they come reaving south. But these are much worse than that. Word is that at the direction of the Svardic high priest Hakon, and some say Terbjornsson himself, the Svards are targeting Tarathi churches, and slaughtering Tarathi clergy, and desecrating holy sites. It seems to be a brewing holy war, but there's never been a holy war with Svarden. Nobody's heard of such a thing. Svards are normally too indiscriminate in who they kill. So Alexander and Yoren are itching to get back into action. A large force already moved out south days ago. The Marshal tells them they will be moving out with another smaller army within the next few days. In the meantime, there are a few other mercenary companies in the camps outside Arcadia. Most are larger than Steelshod. 3 are relevant going forward. The first is a small elite company of cavalry, mostly out of Kirkworth. They're called the Dusk Riders, led by a Kirky knight named Thesifer Crispin. Sir Crispin is a bit of an arrogant twat, and he openly turns up his nose at Steelshod a little. The Dusk Riders number about 20 in total. Next is the Bold Brotherhood, led by one Bertram the Bold. Bertram, or Bertie to his friends, is an amiable chap, good with the rank and file, and a good tactical commander. The Bold Brotherhood is a company of pikemen, primarily Cadian. They are trained in pike, tall shield, and crossbow. They number about 400 and are well known across most of the Midlands for being well trained and courageous. Over the last 10 years, they've held several key lines against superior numbers in various conflicts throughout the Midlands. The last group we care about are the Sons of Victory, led, perhaps ironically, by a woman named Gwyneth Carver. These guys come from the Middish free city of Victoria, northeast of Cadia. Victoria has a rich history and one of the strongest sovereign identities of any region in the Western Midlands, notably, and named, for a unique honor achieved during the height of the Castilian Empire's power. When the Empire controlled most of the Midlands, a single fortified trading hub rebelled. They shucked off the imperial yoke, and then held their little city. For 2 generations, the newly named city of Victoria fought and won against the Castilians. The Empire spent far more money and men on the battles than the speck of land was worth. Some say that their failure to retake Victoria was a factor that led to Tarathia finally making its move against the Empire, and shattering their hegemony forever. So, Victoria holds the unique honor of being the only Middish kingdom that does not owe its sovereignty and independence to Tarathia. Victorians never let you forget it either. The free city lacks a king or any serfs. Every Victorian is a noble in his heart, so says their charter. The city is ruled by a poorly designed elected republic, an aping of the Castilian style that they shucked off. Victoria's most well-known military might lies in its axemen, highly trained contingents of men that carry heavy axes. They're able to stand a line, cleave through a horse and rider in one blow, smash through shield lines and armor, and they fared well enough against the legions of Kassala. The Sons of Victory are a nationally sponsored company of axemen, hand-picked by Gwyneth, one of the best axemen living. Unlike the other mercs, the Sons did not come to Cadia for loot. They came because Victoria recognizes that the Sephardic invasion will likely not stop in Cadia. They came as a show of friendship, from the people of Victoria to the Cadian king. Gwyneth herself is an uncouth son of a bitch. She affords zero special respect for noble titles, lordships, or the like. She is liable to kick up her feet at a war council. She calls Lord Marshal Winston, and Yoren and Alexander like her immediately. Yoren and Alexander made the acquaintance of the other mercenaries, and meet the recruits Jaspar has found. So, let's meet him. First up is Sir Gerald Thornton, called the Unicorn. Gerald is a knight of Kirkworth. He originally came here with the Dusk Riders, and he has recently left their employ due to differences with Sir Crispin. He came to Steelshod basically because he heard Crispin didn't like them. Thornton is a knight with proper training in courtesy, horsemanship, and arms. His personality isn't strong, but he's basically kind, selfless, and decent. Alexandra puts him to the test and finds him quite competent. Thornton is a skilled archer and lancer. He got his nickname when he once killed an enemy warhorse in a charge with a single, well-placed arrow. Welcome aboard, Gerald. Next up is Amos. Amos is illiterate and talks like a backwoods hick. He was a poacher, trapper, and woodsman. He lived deep in the foothills along the border of southern Cadia. He rides a small, scruffy little horse named Nelly. He carries a hatchet, bow, and arrows. Damn good with all of the above. Amos don't know much, but he knows that southern Cadia done been infested with them bloody Sfards. Came up here to see if the crown was fixing to do something about it. But none of the nobles will even give him the time of day. Steelshod, on the other hand, has been mighty friendly. So, in addition to being a skilled hunter, tracker, etc., Amos knows the south of Cadia like the dirt on the back of his hand, and Marshall has already said he's likely to send Steelshod south next. Welcome aboard, Amos. Next up, we have Pierre, a Lorinet man-at-arms. Pierre is outrageously well outfitted, with a steel breastplate and steel halberd, both inscribed with the dolphin sigils of the royal family of Lorraine. It doesn't take long to realize this man is Pierre Lenore, an infamous criminal in his homeland. Pierre was a member of the Royal Guard, a highly respected position, defending the personage of a Lorinet Duke, when his patron walked in on Pierre fucking his wife. The Duke demanded the other Royal Guards bring him Pierre's head. Pierre gave his brothers-in-arms a taste of his halberd instead. When all was said and done, 3 members of the Royal Guard and the Duke himself had been slain, and Pierre fled Lorraine, never to return. For the last several years, he has hired himself out as a mercenary. He drinks heavily, sleeps with anything remotely attractive, doesn't much respect authority, sometimes seems to have a bit of a death wish, and he is an absolute demon in battle. Alexander is a little concerned about his discipline, but he's confident he will be able to control Pierre, possibly even temper him, smooth over some of the rougher edges. So welcome aboard Pierre Lenoir, Next up is a pair of recruits, Ignis Vecchio and Nate, or Mucker. An odd pair that seem inseparable. Ignis is an older Castellan with impeccable Middish. Mucker is a young Cadian from the slums of Arcadia who speaks with a rough sort of Cockney. Ignis served some 20 years in the Castellan legions in an Architecti century. Basically, an Army Corps of Engineers. Ignis understands how to operate the siege weapons of a bygone age, and even, theoretically, understands how they work, and how to build them. Even though the Architecti don't build too many siege engines these days, and none that surpass the quality of the Empire in its heyday. Nate was conscripted into the Cadian army years ago, and found himself serving as a sapper, mostly digging pits and other grunt work, but he understood what he was doing. He found it interesting, how he could reduce a fortified wall to rubble with some well-placed tunnels, or by removing the right keystone. Then Ignis found him, took the lad under his wing, gave him direction, purpose, and extensive training. These days, Mucker still does most of Ignis's grunt work, but they consider themselves partners. Personality-wise, Ignis is cultured, refined, a Castellan citizen through and through. Nate is rough, sounds like a dock worker or a street thug, but he's just as smart as Ignis, and can rattle off sophisticated, for the time, geometry in that thick lower-class voice of his. Welcome aboard, Ignis and Nate. And of course, the trio. Leona, Agrippa, and Hubert have arrived in Arcadia via ship. Once they hear about the atrocities the Svards are committing, Hubert advocates that they get involved. And Steelshod seems to be offering a high pay rate. Highest, of course, for Agrippa. In many respects, Agrippa is the reason the trio get hired at all. Leona's a good fighter, but she has an insubordinate streak. Not unlike other Steelshod members, but she manages to irritate Alexander within minutes of meeting him. Reminder, same player, irritating himself. Hubert is friendly enough, but he basically offers his services as a cook, priest, and general helper. He isn't immediately forthcoming about his skills at grappling, poisons, alchemy, or torture. But Agrippa is a medico. And so far Steelshod's been making do with Orson, whose only claim to medical training is that his mother was a midwife. They offer the trio a position, with Agrippa getting a double share right out the gate. Welcome aboard, trio. During the customary introductory fight, they see that Hubert can handle himself better than expected. Joran's gut says there's more to this guy than meets the eye, and he begins talking to Hubert extensively. It doesn't take that long to start getting more details out of him. The one that really makes Joran's eyes light up is when Hubert says the word alchemy. Joran can be circumspect and humble when the need absolutely requires it, and he does not demand Hubert teach him alchemy. But he does ask nicely a lot. Finally, the reinforcements Lord Marshal was waiting for have arrived. The Marshal is remaining in Arcadia, preparing for the fleet that has been seen in the north. However, he's sending Steelshod, the Dusk Riders, the Bold Brotherhood, and the Sons of Victory south. They are to escort a small army of a few hundred Cadians and a couple of key resources to the army in the south. Those resources are Lord Calvin Volk and his strategist, a man named Brutus Varley. Lord Volk is a lord in northern Cadia, a hard man, not much humor, but an excellent strategist and commander. His mentor Varley is half Middish, half Spitalian, and ancient. Varley is over 80 years old and frail and sickly as one might expect. But he is one of the best strategists in Cadia, or even in the whole of the Midlands. Born and raised in Cadia, in his youth he led Spitalian armies against the rapidly decaying empire. He retired to his homeland, helped then-Regent Marshal in several key conflicts with Lorraine and Kirkworth. He took Volk under his wing along the way. The army they're going to reinforce is commanded by Lord Mortimer Wigglesworth, another Northern lord. Wigglesworth is the third link in the chain of mentorship that begins with Farley. The Marshal is keeping a large portion of the armies in the north. Giving Wigglesworth 2 more of his best strategists in the kingdom, and the cream of the mercs is his consolation. Marshal hopes Wigglesworth can put them to good use and quell the Svards in southern Cadia. The company gets underway, heading towards the castle of Crowfield, where Wigglesworth will meet them. Due to their high number of riders, Steelshod joins the Dusk Riders as the primary scouting apparatus of their small army. After many days of travel, they do scout across something of note: the trail of a large group of Svards. Including Amos's Shore, at least one big sumbitch, one of them berserkers or whatchamacallits. Steelshod pursues the trail. They find the Svards and 2 Bearsarks. The battle is swift and brutal. Just one notable event I wanted to relay. At one point, Yoren removes to engage one of the Bearsarks. The Bearsark has been only mildly inconvenienced so far, scratched up a bit. Yoren moves in with a purpose. Confident in the training he's been going through with Olivenko, the Bearsark sees a 5'0" little man in leather with 2 slender little blades and laughs. Yoren engages the Bearsark, baits out an attack, avoids it, and then gets in close with 2 brutal thrusts. It wasn't so long ago that I gave Yoren face stab, as a way of more effectively dealing damage in some situations. The player was so stoked he has already boosted it with a tier ability. And this is the first time we see a face stab crit at the table. A near max damage face stab crit no less, followed by a regular hit that also manages to penetrate. Something along the lines of 11d8 plus a d4 and some small flat bonuses. Yoren's sword pierces the Bearsark's throat, cuts his laugh short, and he ducks to the side as the Bearsark topples over. Technically, the Bearsark had suffered some damage already, but the moment will be retold by those that saw it, as Yoren, striding up to a Bearsark, calm as you please, and smiting him down with a single blow. The first time he's ever done something like that, but it will most definitely not be the last. Blade magic. Just one of many tricks up the Black Magician's sleeve. Thank you for tuning in to Steelshod, a series by Mostly Rights, narrated by Taleforge. You can find every chapter in text format, as well as character sheets, setting information, maps, and rule documents on the Steelshod tabletop system in the link below. If you'd like to support the channel, you can pop down to the description and use the Patreon link for recurring donations, the PayPal.me link for one-time donations, the Teespring link for shirts with the incredibly cool background art by Nobody, or use the DriveThruRPG affiliate link the next time you're looking to try a new system. If you'd like to support the author, you can find Steelshod merch on the MostlyRights.com store, or donate to the Mostly Rights Patreon, which are both linked on reddit.com/r/mostlyrights down below.